Hi friend, today let's chat about standardized testing. I'm going to chat about the good, the bad, and the ugly of standardized testing. I'm also going to share with you why I will not be using this testing book, why it's going right back to the testing center, and what I'm doing instead with my third grader. So welcome to Born for Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Bourne. My husband and I have 4 kiddos ranging in ages from 3 to 11, and I have a first grader, a third grader, and a 6th grader that I am homeschooling this year. And here in the state of Pennsylvania, where we are homeschooling, we are required to do standardized testing in the 3rd grade, the 5th grade, and the 8th grade years. And so this year, my 2nd daughter will be doing standardized testing for her 3rd grade year. So as I've had experience the last several years with my daughters doing some standardized testing here for our homeschool, there are a few things that I've noticed about standardized testing that can be really good, that are beneficial, that can be a resource to me as the homeschooling mom. So the first thing that I have noticed that has seemed to be a really good resource for me when it comes to standardized testing is that I think that standardized testing helps you to see as a homeschool mom the areas that your child, the material that has been covered, how well that they have understood that, how well they have internalized that, and how well that has become a basic for their educational knowledge. So it gives you a good, sometimes it can give you a really good picture as far as the material that you have covered well in your homeschool. I think a standardized test has also been a really good resource for me to gauge the test taking skills of my daughter. So for me to see, I really believe that test taking is a skill. I think that some children it comes easier to, some children need to be trained and given a little bit more instruction and more practice for developing that skill. So taking a standardized test, I think, is an excellent way for a homeschool student to begin practicing and working on this test-taking skill. Another thing I think that standardized testing does show is the ability of your student to take information, a question, a concept that they are familiar with, that they do know how to do, that they have mastered, and present information or a question to them in maybe a format that they're not familiar with, and then to see if they can take the information that they do know and relate it to that new format and arrive at the correct answer. I think it's a really great way to measure how they are able to adjust to a different format. So the last thing that I think that a standardized test can do is to show progress. So when my oldest daughter was in 3rd grade and she took her first standardized test, it really demonstrated that she needed some more work on spelling. And so up until her 3rd grade year, through her 3rd grade year, we did not do any sort of formal spelling curriculum or anything like that. She was writing lots and learning about writing and doing a lot of writing practice, but we didn't do any sort of spelling at that time. And so seeing that that was an area of weakness for her, I used that information and to go ahead and implement a spelling curriculum for us for the next several school years. And so the 4th grade she did spelling, the 5th grade she did spelling, and it was good to see the progress. She had her standardized test again in 5th grade, and from 3rd grade to 5th grade we could see the progress of her spelling. And so sometimes I think you can get a good picture of progress in certain areas when it comes to a standardized test. Now, the bad that I have seen when it comes to a standardized test is a standardized test is such a small picture of a snippet of your child's abilities. I think you have to be aware of the fact that a standardized test can not measure how smart your child is. So that's the number one thing. It cannot measure how intelligent your child is or their mental capacity. It's just not designed to do that, and it's not a good thing. If you're going into this expecting to see how smart your kid is, it's just not going to happen. It's not a good picture of it. Another thing to understand is that a standardized test is not a good indicator as to the aptitudes and capabilities and abilities of your child. It's just so limited in the actual information that the test can test for, and the information that your child can answer, and it's just not a good indicator. If you have a child who is brilliant when it comes to poetry, to writing and understanding poetry, there is just not a way to see that on a standardized test. I mean, maybe their language skills will be high, and word knowledge will be high and that sort of thing, but you're not going to see that your child is an incredible poet when it comes to looking at the results of a standardized test. So keep that in mind when you are looking at a standardized test for your child, is that it's not a good indicator as far as your child as a whole and their abilities as a whole. It's just a very narrow snippet of a few of the educational abilities and understanding of your child. So bear that in mind whenever you're looking at a standardized test. Another thing to just recognize and understand is that a standardized test doesn't always give you a good picture of the progress your child is making. So it's just not the design of the test to be able to measure where your child is at, and to see where they're at now from where they were 2 years ago. It's not designed to do that. That's not what the purpose of the test. That's not why it was created or why it's administered. And so making sure that you're not putting too much weight into the results of a standardized test is really important when it comes to homeschooling for you and for your child. And that being said, let's talk about what could have gotten ugly when it comes to standardized testing here in our homeschool this year. So here in our homeschool, there are a few reasons that we do standardized testing. And the purpose of standardized testing, the number one purpose, is to fulfill the legal requirements for our homeschooling law here in our state. So we do the standardized test to fulfill that requirement. And the second thing is when my oldest daughter was looking at doing her 3rd grade standardized test, I had a few goals for her. I wanted to just measure a little bit about as far as her academic ability. I wanted to measure her test taking ability. I wanted her to have the opportunity to take on something that was difficult or something that was hard, something that was unknown and unfamiliar to her. And I wanted her to work through that and to build the character of coming out of that experience and recognizing that she could do hard things. And so that was really my purpose in my oldest daughter whenever she was testing. So in her 3rd grade and her 5th grade year, I really wanted her to be challenged when it came to testing. I wanted it to be a little bit of a challenge to her. I wanted her to gain confidence from, successfully coming through the experience. And so when I chose her tests, I was specifically keeping these goals and these purposes in mind. And so I chose a full battery, rigorous Stanford test for her. And then when it came to my second oldest daughter, I'm looking for specific things. Like I'm specifically wanting to get a gauge on her vocabulary and word building and her linguistic skills. And I'm also wanting her to come out and feel confident and feel empowered, and for her to just feel successful when it comes to school. And so that is my goal. And so I intended to order the CAT test, the California Achievement Test for her, but I did not intend for it to be the complete battery. There's an abbreviated battery that I was planning for her to take, and I accidentally ordered the wrong one. So I opened the package a couple of days ago and I noticed that I ordered the wrong one, and I thought, oh, no big deal. Like, we'll just do this one. You know, it's the complete battery. It'll take a little bit longer. It'll be a little bit more intense, and that's okay. But as I started looking over the packet for the test, I was just struck by the overwhelming volume of subjects and questions that she would have to be answering. And I knew that it would just be extremely overwhelming for her. And because that specific test, I knew she would not come out of feeling successful. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to return this and I'm not going to have her do this one. And I found an abbreviated version of the Stanford test, abbreviated battery that she can do. It will be an online test. And so I think she will enjoy the online part of it. And it will also be way less when it comes to the sheer volume of testing that it will be a part of the test. And so that's something that I've taken all of these factors into consideration whenever I choose a standardized test for my children. And I think it's really important as the homeschool parent to really make sure that we are choosing the test that's going to meet our needs, that's going to be a resource for us, that's going to be a tool for us to use as parents and as educators to really help our child to be the best student that they need to be, to grow in the skills that they need to, and to grow in the knowledge, but also to grow in the character that they need to have. And so anyways, I hope that you found this video to be helpful. I hope by explaining a few of my, background thoughts and the process that I use whenever I'm looking at choosing a standardized test. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did find it to be helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Born for Homeschool so that you don't miss any of our weekly videos on tips and tricks, information, and encouragement to simply support you in your homeschool. I hope you have a wonderful week homeschooling, and I will see you again in next week's video.